I found out my husband had another family because his daughter called him while he was in the shower. Not unusual, right? Except we don't have kids. At least, I thought we didn't. The phone lit up on the bathroom counter while steam filled the room, his silhouette barely visible behind the glass. I wasn't snooping. I had just walked in to grab my face cream. But the screen lit up. Dad. My stomach dropped. I froze. For a second, I actually convinced myself it had to be some kind of joke. Maybe a niece. Maybe someone joking around. Maybe. The phone kept ringing. And then a second message popped up. Are you coming tonight? Mom said don't be late this time.
Mom.
Not me. Not my name.
Mom.
I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. My ears started ringing. I stared at the phone like it was something alive, something dangerous. Behind the glass, I could hear him humming. Completely relaxed. Completely normal. Like nothing was wrong. Like his entire life wasn't about to collapse. I should have put the phone down. I should have pretended I saw nothing. But I didn't. My hand moved before I could stop it. I picked it up. The message thread was already open. And what I saw didn't just hurt. It rearranged my entire reality. Photos.
Dozens of them.
Birthdays. School events. A little girl, maybe 8 or 9, smiling at the camera, missing front teeth in one picture, holding up a science fair ribbon in another. And him, my husband, standing next to her, arm around her shoulders, smiling. The same smile he gave me every morning. The same smile he used when he said, I love you. My hands started shaking. I scrolled. More messages. Don't forget Thursday dinner with my parents. I miss you. Why didn't you answer last night? And then, I told her you're working late again. I stopped breathing. Her.
Me. She knew about me.
Or, at least she knew there was someone. I felt something cold crawl up my spine. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't some one-time mistake. This was a life. A whole second life. And he had built it right next to mine. The water shut off. I dropped the phone back exactly where it was, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might echo off the tiles. I walked out of the bathroom like nothing happened, sat on the bed, picked up my own phone, opened Instagram, scrolled, breathed. Act normal. Act normal. Act normal. The door opened a minute later. He walked out, towel around his waist, hair damp, smiling like always. Hey, he said casually. You okay? I looked up at him. At the man I had spent 6 years with. The man I married 3 years ago. The man I thought I knew. And I smiled. Yeah, I said softly. Just tired. He nodded, walking over, leaning down to kiss my forehead. I'll make coffee, he said. You want some? Sure. My voice didn't shake. Not even a little. And that's when I realized something. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. Because whatever this was, it was bigger than I understood. And if he could lie this well for this long, then I needed to be smarter. For the next 3 days, I said nothing. Not a word. Not a hint. I watched him. I listened. I noticed things I had never noticed before. Like how he suddenly had late meetings twice a week. How he always took his phone with him. Even to the kitchen, even to the mailbox. How he started locking the bathroom door when he showered. Details. Tiny, almost invisible details. But now they were screaming at me. I started collecting everything. Dates. Times. Excuses. Patterns. I even took pictures of his calendar when he left his laptop open. It didn't take long to find it. Thursday nights. Always blocked. Client dinner. Every week. No exceptions. And that message from the girl. Are you coming tonight? Tonight. Thursday. My heart pounded. That was it. That was my entry point. I didn't plan anything dramatic. No screaming. No crying. No throwing things. I had something better. Something colder. I decided I was going to meet them. Thursday evening came faster than I expected. He kissed me goodbye like always. I'll be late, he said, grabbing his keys. Don't wait up. I smiled. Of course, I said. The door closed behind him, and the second I heard his car pull away, I moved. I grabbed my coat, my keys, my bag. My hands were steady. Too steady. Like I had already crossed some invisible line. I opened his laptop. Pulled up his email. There it was. Reservation confirmation. Same restaurant. Same time. Every Thursday. I stared at the address. Then I took a deep breath. And I left. The restaurant was expensive. The kind of place we only went to on anniversaries. Dim lighting. Soft music. People dressed like they had something to prove. I walked in like I belonged there. Because I did. I had every right to be there. The hostess smiled. Do you have a reservation? I shook my head. No, I said calmly. But I'm meeting someone. She nodded, glancing around. Of course. And then I saw him, across the room, sitting at a table near the window, laughing, relaxed,
Happy.
and he wasn't alone. There was a woman sitting across from him, early 30s, beautiful, confident, and next to her, the girl, the one from the photos. She was swinging her legs under the table, talking animatedly, completely unaware that her world was about to change. I stood there for a moment, just watching, taking it in, burning it into my memory. This was real. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a mistake. This was his life. And then, I started walking toward them. I didn't rush. That's the part one still think about. Not the betrayal. Not even the lies. But the way I walked toward that table slowly, calmly, like I was arriving for a dinner I had every right to attend. Maybe because I did. His back was half turned toward me, so he didn't see me first. The woman did. Her smile faded before her brain caught up. At first, she looked confused. Then cautious. Then something else. Recognition. Not of me personally. Of what I represented. A problem. A truth. A crack in whatever story he had been feeding her. The little girl kept talking, swinging her feet, stirring a drink with a straw. She was innocent in a way that made my chest ache. She looked like him around the eyes. I stopped beside the table. He turned. And I watched the exact second his face emptied. No color. No smile. No breath. Just shock. Pure, naked shock.
Hi, I said.
His mouth opened. Nothing came out. The woman looked from him to me. Do you know her? I kept my eyes on him. Yeah, I said softly. He does. The girl looked up at me curiously.
Dad.
There it was. Not a message. Not a photo. Not a suspicion. A living, breathing word hanging in the middle of the restaurant.
Dad.
I could feel people nearby starting to notice. Forks slowing. Voices lowering. He stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. What are you doing here? He whispered harshly. I smiled. That really was his first question. Not how do you know? Not I'm sorry. Not please let me explain. Just, what are you doing here? Like I was the one who had violated something. I think the better question, I said, still calm, is why my husband is having dinner with his other family. The woman blinked. The girl frowned. And his entire body seemed to tighten like a wire pulled too far. Let's go outside, he hissed. No, I said. The woman stood now too. What did she just say? He turned to her quickly. It's not my husband. I repeated, more clearly this time. We've been married for 3 years. Silence. Not complete silence. Restaurants never go fully silent. But a strange hush spread around us, the kind that happens when people pretend not to listen while hearing every word. The woman stared at him, then at me, then back at him. And all the confidence I'd seen in her when I first walked in disappeared. She looked less like a mistress suddenly, and more like someone standing on a floor that had just cracked open. You're married? She asked him. He didn't answer. That was answer enough. The little girl's face changed. Her eyes moved between us, confused, uncomfortable, too young to understand and old enough to know something was wrong. I hated that she was there for this. I hated him more for making it possible. He rubbed both hands over his face and lowered his voice. Please. Can we not do this here? The woman laughed once. It wasn't amused. It was the sound people make when their body rejects reality. Here, she said. You're worried about here? I finally looked at her fully. She wasn't wearing a wedding ring. Her hands trembled, just slightly. She had probably built her own version of him too. Her own story. Her own excuses. And right then, I understood something important. She wasn't the enemy. He was. Always had been. What did you tell her? I asked him. He looked cornered now, eyes darting between us, calculating. I could almost see him searching for a version of the truth he could survive. The woman beat him to it. No, she said, staring at him. What did you tell you? Her voice cracked on the last word. He said nothing. So I answered for him. He told me he worked late on Thursdays. I glanced at the girl, then back at her mother. And I'm guessing he told you the same thing about some other night. She swallowed. Wednesdays. Of course. Different lies. Same man. The little girl tugged on his sleeve. Dad, what's happening? He crouched immediately, turning all soft and gentle, and that nearly made me sick. That instant switch. The performance. The practiced warmth. Nothing, sweetheart. Grown-up conversation, okay? The woman took a step back from him.
No.
Not back.
Away.
Like some part of her body had finally decided what her mind hadn't yet caught up to. She looked at me. How long? 6 years together, I said. 3 married. She went white. Then she whispered, 5. I stared at her. 5 years. That meant overlap. Not a fling hidden inside a marriage. Not some messy affair that started later. He had built both relationships at the same time. Laid 2 foundations. Raised 2 houses. Lived in both. I should tell you, if you're listening to this and wondering whether rage feels hot or cold, cold wins. At least at first. It settles into your bones and sharpens everything. Every sound. Every expression. Every lie. The woman looked at him like she had never seen his face before. You said your divorce was ugly, she whispered. You said you didn't want to remarry because of what your ex put you through. His eyes flicked to me in panic. Interesting. So, in her story, I was already the villain. I almost laughed. Instead, I said, I'm not his ex. The girl started crying quietly. Not loud. Just frightened tears she was trying hard to hide. That broke something in the woman, because she immediately turned to her daughter and wrapped an arm around her. And suddenly the whole room shifted. This wasn't about humiliation anymore. This was about damage control. For the child. Because he had dragged a child into an adult lie. I stepped back. This isn't the place, I said to her. Not for her. The woman's eyes met mine again, and in them I saw something I hadn't expected to feel tonight. Not hatred. Not competition. Solidarity. Not friendship. Not forgiveness. Just that raw, ugly bond between 2 women who had just discovered they'd both been used by the same man. She nodded once. Then she looked at him and said, with terrifying calm, We're leaving. He reached for her arm. Wait. She jerked away from him like his hand burned. Don't touch me. Then she took her daughter's hand and walked out.
Just like that.
No screaming. No scene. No second chances. He watched them go, stunned. Then he turned to me. And for the first time all night, the mask was gone. He looked scared.
Good.
You ruined everything, he said. Not, I'm sorry. Not, I messed up. You ruined everything. I stared at him. And I swear to you, any tiny piece of grief still trying to survive inside me shriveled right there. I ruined everything? I said. He lowered his voice. You blindsided me. I actually laughed then. A real laugh. Small. Incredulous, sharp. Blindsided you? That's your complaint. He looked around, humiliated, aware of the eyes on us, the waiter pretending to wipe a nearby table, the older couple openly staring now. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. And there it was again. Not guilt. Logistics. His problem wasn't betrayal. It was timing. I leaned in just slightly. Then how is it supposed to happen? I asked. When you got tired of one of us. When your daughter got old enough to ask why daddy disappears 2 nights a week. When I turned 40 and you decided I'd wasted enough of my life. He clenched his jaw. You don't understand. No, I said. I understand perfectly. You thought you were smarter than everyone else. He said nothing.
Because yes.
That was exactly what he thought. I looked at the untouched wine on the table. 3 glasses. 1 for him. 1 for her. 1 probably ordered because the girl wanted to feel grown up too, filled with sparkling water and a lemon wedge. A whole little ritual. A whole lie with table settings. Then I looked back at him. This is the last conversation we will ever have in public, I said. When you come home tonight, pack a bag. His eyes narrowed. You can't just throw me out. I held his gaze. The house is in my name. That landed. See, when we got married, my grandmother had just passed, and I used part of the inheritance to buy the house. He contributed to utilities, groceries, vacations, surface-level life. But the property?
Mine.
Entirely mine. He knew that. He just hadn't expected it to matter. He straightened a little, trying to find footing.
We're married.
It's not that simple. Maybe not legally, I said. But practically?
It is.
Pack a bag. Then I turned and walked away. I didn't run after the woman. I didn't chase closure. I didn't stay to hear him finally invent the perfect speech. I had heard enough. He came home at 11:47 p.m. I remember the exact time because I was sitting in the dark living room waiting for him, and the microwave clock was the only thing glowing. He stepped inside quietly, probably hoping I'd be asleep. I switched on the lamp. He flinched. For one ridiculous second. He actually looked annoyed to find me there.
Sit, I said.
He didn't move. I repeated it. He sat. I stayed standing. There's power in that, by the way. Not because of drama. Because betrayal always tries to shrink you. Standing reminded me I was still in my own body. Still in my own house. Still real. He rubbed his hands together. I know how this looks. I closed my eyes for half a second. Every cheating man in the history of bad decisions must receive the same script at birth. How it looks. I repeated. You have a second family. He exhaled. It's complicated.
No, I said.
It's crowded. That shut him up.
So, I asked the question that mattered.
How long has she known about me? He hesitated. Too long. How long? She knew there was someone.
Someone.
The way liars use words is fascinating. They shave reality down to something smooth enough to swallow. Did she know you were married? He looked down. That was another yes. I nodded slowly. And did she know about me before or after the child was born? He said nothing. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. Answer me. Before. There are moments when pain becomes so precise it stops feeling like pain and starts feeling like a physical object.
A nail.
A blade. A crack in glass.
Before.
So while he was building a future with me, he was already building one with her. At the same time, I took a breath. Did you ever intend to stop?
He looked up at me then. And, do you know what I saw?
Not remorse.
Exhaustion.
As if managing the lie had become tiring for him. I didn't know how, he said. Cowardice always dresses itself up as confusion. You knew how to start it, I said. You knew how to maintain it. You knew how to buy birthday gifts, tell stories, keep calendars, remember names, divide your weekends, invent business trips. You knew exactly how. He ran a hand through his hair. I cared about both of you. I laughed again, but there was no humor in it.
No.
You cared about being loved by both of us. He stood up too fast. You think this was easy for me? That question. That unbelievable, rotten question. I stepped closer. No, I think it was convenient for you. He looked like he wanted to argue, but some part of him knew better now. Maybe for the first time in years, he realized the room no longer belonged to him. The narrative didn't either. I held out my hand. Give me your keys. What? Your keys. To this house.
He stared at me.
Then slowly, reluctantly, he reached into his pocket and placed them in my palm. Metal.
Cold.
It felt strangely ceremonial. Pack what you need tonight, I said. The rest can be arranged later, through lawyers. At that, he frowned. Lawyers? I almost smiled. Did he think this was going to be one emotional argument, and then some tears and bargaining and therapy and time?
No.
I'm filing for divorce. He swallowed.
Hard.
Come on, he said quietly. Don't make permanent decisions when you're angry. That's another liar classic, by the way. They create catastrophe, and then ask you to be reasonable inside it. This isn't anger, I said. This is clarity. He tried a different route. What about everything we built? I looked around the room. The couch we picked. The bookshelves. The framed photos. The life I thought was mine. Then I looked back at him. You built 2 versions of everything. So don't talk to me about what we built. He packed 1 duffel bag. That was all. Apparently 6 years of marriage can fit into a single black bag when a man has been keeping half of himself elsewhere. At the door, he paused. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't answer. Because what do you even say to that? Harm doesn't become accidental just because the person causing it says they wished it were cleaner. He opened the door. Then he stopped and said almost defensively, I'm not a monster. That one stayed with me. Because monsters, in stories, are easy to spot. They have teeth. They roar. They arrive like storms. Real monsters make coffee in the morning and kiss your forehead and text you that they'll be late. I finally spoke. Maybe not, I said. But you are happy to live like one. Then I closed the door behind him. And for the first time all day, I let myself fall apart. I didn't sleep. I walked through the house until dawn like I was touring a museum of my own stupidity. The mug he always used. His jacket on the chair. A receipt in his jeans pocket from a pharmacy near the other side of town. I stood there holding it for 10 minutes, wondering if he'd bought vitamins for me or medicine for her or bandages for the life he'd been tearing in half. At 6:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I knew who it was before I opened it. It was her. Just one message.
Can we talk?
Alone. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I replied.
Yes.
She sent the address of a small coffee shop halfway across town.
Noon.
I arrived 10 minutes early. She was already there. No makeup this time. Hair tied back. Face pale from either crying or not sleeping, maybe both. She looked different in daylight.
Not softer exactly.
More real.
She stood when she saw me.
I didn't know if you'd come, she said. I almost didn't. We sat. For a few seconds, neither of us touched our drinks. Then she said, I'm sorry. I believed her, which surprised me, because after a betrayal like that, belief becomes expensive. She wrapped both hands around her cup. He told me his marriage was over. That you two were separated but still living in the same house because of finances and legal stuff. Then later he said it was complicated. Then later, her voice broke. Then later I stopped asking because every time I did, he made me feel cruel for pressuring him. I nodded slowly. That sounded like him. Not because he'd ever needed to say those exact words to me, but because the strategy was familiar. He liked moral leverage. He liked making other people feel unreasonable while he remained vague. She swallowed. I knew there was dishonesty. I didn't know it was this. I studied her face. She looked wrecked. Not fake wrecked. Not guilty enough to perform it. Just genuinely shattered. Why stay 5 years? I asked. It wasn't an accusation. I needed to know. She gave a hollow laugh. Because he was always almost leaving. Almost free. Almost choosing us fully. Almost done fixing whatever disaster he said he inherited. She looked up at me. And because sometimes people don't stay because they're foolish. They stay because they've already given too much, and leaving means admitting it was for nothing. That landed harder than I wanted it to, because wasn't that true for me too? We sat in silence for a moment. Then she reached into her bag and slid an envelope across the table. What's this? I asked. Proof, she said. I opened it. Photos. Copies of messages.
Gift receipts.
Hotel bookings. School forms with his signature. A life in paper fragments. Then I saw something else. A copy of a lease. His name on it. I looked up. You had a place together? Her expression darkened. He said it was a rental for work. He stayed there some weekends. I thought. She shook her head. I don't know what I thought anymore. I read the address. And suddenly pieces started clicking. Those conference weekends. Those random Saturday disappearances. The one time he claimed his coworker had a medical emergency and he had to cover. The occasional scent of a different detergent on his clothes. Not just 2 families. 3 locations. He hadn't been juggling.
He'd been operating. Carefully.
Systematically. There was another paper in the envelope. I pulled it out. Insurance documents. My breath caught. Her name wasn't listed. Mine was. Spouse beneficiary. Then below that. Dependent child rider. I stared. Dependent child. I looked at her. He put your daughter on my insurance. Her eyes filled. I found out last night when I dug through his files. I leaned back, stunned.
So my job.
My benefits. My marriage on paper. My stability. He had been using them to support the second life too. I don't know what expression crossed my face, but she saw it immediately. You didn't know, she said quietly.
No.
I looked again. Premium history. Coverage confirmations. Reimbursements. He had built practical bridges between our lives without either of us knowing. That's the thing about betrayal at this level. It's not just emotional. It's administrative. It invades systems. Paperwork. Taxes. Benefits. Addresses. Emergency contacts. It colonizes reality. She looked at me carefully. I thought you should have this before he starts rewriting things.
Smart.
Very smart. Because men like him don't confess. They edit. I closed the envelope. Thank you. She nodded, then hesitated. There's more. Of course there was. He came to my place last night. I didn't react. He said you were unstable. That you'd become obsessed. That you ambushed us to punish him because you couldn't accept the marriage was already dead. There it was. The rewrite had already started. I let out one slow breath. And
she met my eyes.
And I told him to get out. For the first time since this whole thing began, something like respect moved through me. Real respect. Because denial is easy when truth costs you everything. She chose truth anyway. She looked down at the table. My daughter asked this morning if he still gets to be her dad. That hurt more than anything. Not because it was dramatic. Because it was so heartbreakingly simple. Kids don't care about the architecture of adult deception. They care whether someone still shows up. I'm sorry, I said. She nodded, eyes glassy. Me too. We sat there, two women connected by damage neither of us had chosen, and I had this strangest feeling. Not closure, purpose. Because now I knew something I hadn't known at the restaurant. He wasn't just a cheater. He was a strategist. And that meant one thing. He was already preparing for war. By that evening, my lawyer had called me back. Not a family friend. Not a recommendation from some neighbor. A shark. Quiet voice, terrifying eyes, immaculate email timing. Exactly the kind of woman I needed. I forwarded everything. The house deed. Bank records. Insurance forms. Screenshots. The lease from the other apartment. Photos of his messages. Every timeline detail I had logged in those first 3 days. She called within an hour. Do not delete anything, she said. I haven't. Good. Do not engage with him emotionally. Everything in writing from now on when possible. Understood. And one more thing. Her voice sharpened. He may try to move money. My stomach tightened. What money? That, she said, is what we're going to find out. And that was the moment I realized the affair was only the beginning. Because men who lie like this rarely lie in only one language. And money is always a language. The next morning, I woke up to silence. No coffee machine. No footsteps. No soft good morning that used to feel like safety. Just stillness. And for the first time since everything exploded, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I felt focused. Cold, clear, surgical focus. Because now this wasn't just about betrayal. It was about damage control. At 8:03 a.m., I logged into our joint account. Or what I thought was our joint account. Balance, $3,412.67. I stared at the screen. That wasn't right. We had over $42,000 in there last week. Savings. Emergency fund. Buffer money.
Gone.
Not spent. Transferred. My chest tightened, but not in panic. In confirmation. My lawyer had been right. He wasn't reacting. He was moving.
Fast.
I called the bank immediately. After 20 minutes of automated voices and hold music that felt like psychological torture, I finally got a real person. Hi, I need to report suspicious activity on my account. They asked security questions. I answered everything perfectly. Then she said something that made my grip tighten on the phone. The transfer was authorized. By who? Your husband. He has full access to the account. Of course he did. Of course I had trusted him enough to give him that. Where did the money go? There was a pause. I can't disclose the destination account without a formal request or a legal process. Of course. Rules. Processes.
Systems.
The same systems he had been quietly using against me. Flag it, I said. Immediately. We can open an investigation, but if the transfer was authorized. I didn't authorize it. Another pause. I'll mark it as disputed. That was something. Not enough, but something. I hung up and immediately called my lawyer. She picked up on the second ring. He moved the money, I said. I assumed he would, she replied calmly. How much? Almost everything. Good. I blinked. Good. Yes, she said. Now we know his strategy. I leaned against the kitchen counter, trying to catch up with her logic. Which is, he's consolidating assets before you file. He thinks he can control the narrative by controlling the money. And can he? There was a brief silence. Then she said very clearly, not if we move faster. By noon, everything changed. She filed. Emergency motion. Asset freeze request. Full financial disclosure demand. And something else. Something I hadn't expected. Given the evidence of dual households and potential misuse of marital funds, she said, we're also requesting a forensic audit. I let that sink in. Forensic.
Yes.
Which means if he's been hiding money, moving money, or using your assets to support another life. Her voice sharpened slightly. We're going to find it. At 2:17 p.m., my phone buzzed. His name. I stared at it. Let it ring. Then it stopped. A second later. Message.
We need to talk.
This is getting out of hand. Out of hand. Like this was some minor disagreement. Like he hadn't detonated 2 lives and walked away. I didn't reply. Another message. You're making a mistake. Lawyers will only make this worse. I almost smiled. There it was again.
Control.
He didn't want resolution. He wanted access. Access to me.
To influence me. To reshape the story. To slow me down. I
typed back exactly one sentence. All communication goes through my attorney. Then I blocked him. 3 hours later, my lawyer called again. You're going to want to sit down. I already was. What did you find? Not me, she said. Him. My stomach tightened. He responded? Oh yes. That was fast. Too fast. Which meant he had already been preparing. What did he say? She exhaled once, like she was choosing her words carefully. He's claiming financial hardship. I actually laughed. Out loud. Hardship? He just moved $40,000.
Yes, she said.
But according to his statement, that money was already committed to business obligations and personal debts. Bullshit. Agreed, she said calmly. But that's not the interesting part. I went quiet. What is? He's also claiming that you were aware of his other relationship. The room felt colder. What? He's stating that the marriage was open in practice and that you had an understanding about his time outside the home. I stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly across the floor. That's a lie. I know, she said, but it's a useful one. For who? For him. If he can establish that you knew or tolerated, it weakens claims of deception and financial misuse tied to that relationship. I pressed my hand to my forehead. He wasn't just lying. He was rewriting.
Strategically.
Do we have proof he's lying? Yes, she said immediately. Plenty. Messages. Timelines. Witnesses. Witnesses. My mind flashed back to the restaurant.
To her.
To the way her face collapsed when she realized the truth. She'll testify, I said quietly. There was a pause.
Who?
The other woman. Another pause. Then, that would be extremely useful. I texted her. He's already lying. Saying I knew. She replied almost instantly. I know. He told me the same thing about you.
Of course he did.
Divide and conquer. Make each of us doubt the other. Classic. I typed. Will you help me prove the truth? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared.
Appeared again.
Then, yes. 2 days later, we met again. Not in a cafe this time. In my lawyer's office. Neutral ground. Professional. Controlled. She looked nervous walking in. Not weak. Just aware. This wasn't just emotional anymore. This was legal.
Permanent.
My lawyer shook her hand, introduced herself, and got straight to the point. We need a clear timeline, she said. From both of you. No assumptions. No interpretations. Just facts. So we talked. And something strange happened as we did. Our stories aligned. Perfectly. Every business trip. Every late meeting. Every gap. Every lie. It all fit together like a puzzle that had been deliberately cut to keep us apart. Until now. At one point, my lawyer leaned back and said, almost impressed, he didn't just juggle 2 lives. He engineered them.
Exactly.
That's what I had been trying to put into words. This wasn't chaos. This was design. Then came the financial part. My lawyer slid a document across the table. Recognize this address?
She asked.
I looked. My chest tightened. Yes. It was the apartment. The 3rd location. She nodded. It's under his name. But the payments. She tapped the paper. Come from your joint account. I looked up sharply.
What?
For the past 2 years, she said. Rent, utilities, furnishings. I felt something inside me snap into place. Not break. Luck. So while I was contributing to our life, I was also funding his other one. Without knowing. Without consenting. Without even existing in that reality. I leaned back slowly. How much? My lawyer glanced at her notes. Rough estimate? About $68,000. The room went very, very quiet. Even she, the other woman, looked stunned. He told me that place was paid through his business, she whispered.
Of course he did.
Because lies don't just protect the liar. They isolate the victims from each other. I looked at her. At this woman who had unknowingly been living in a life partially funded by me. And instead of anger, I felt clarity.
This ends now, I said.
My lawyer nodded. It does. That night, I sat alone in the house. But it didn't feel like the same house anymore. It felt reclaimed. Every object still carried memory, but not power. And for the first time, I didn't replay the betrayal. I replayed the strategy. Because now I understood something crucial. He hadn't just underestimated me. He had underestimated us. 2 women. 2 timelines. 2 sets of evidence. 1 truth. And he had built his entire life on the assumption that we would never compare notes. At 9:42 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. Hello. Silence for a second. Then his voice. I know you blocked me.
Of course he found a way.
They told me not to contact you, he continued. But this is insane. I didn't speak. I can fix this, he said quickly. We can fix this. There it was. Not truth. Not accountability.
Fix.
Like it was a broken appliance.
How?
I asked finally. A pause. Then, I'll choose. I closed my eyes. And for the first time since everything began, I felt nothing. No anger. No sadness. No hesitation. Just absence. You already did, I said. And I hung up. Because here's the thing no one tells you about betrayal at this level. It doesn't end when you discover it. It ends when you stop needing anything from the person who caused it. And in that moment, I needed nothing. Not explanations. Not apologies. Not closure. Not even revenge. Just truth. And I already had it. But what I didn't have yet was the ending. And he had no idea how expensive that ending was about to be. 3 weeks later, we were in court. Not a dramatic courtroom like in movies. No shouting. No surprise witnesses bursting through doors. Just quiet tension. Paperwork. Controlled voices. And consequences finally catching up. He looked different. Not broken. Not even ashamed. Just thinner. Tighter. Like someone who hadn't been sleeping well. Good. I had. Not at first. But eventually. Because once the truth settles, your mind stops trying to solve it.
He avoided looking at me.
But he couldn't avoid looking at her.
She was there too.
Sitting beside me. Not as an ally. Not as a friend. As a witness. And that alone changed everything. His lawyer started first. Predictable. Measured. Carefully constructed narrative. My client acknowledges that mistakes were made. Mistakes. However, the relationship between the parties was complex and evolving. Translation. Blur the lines. And there was no malicious intent to deceive. That one almost made me smile. No malicious intent. Just years of calculated lies, divided schedules, hidden finances, and emotional manipulation.
Sure.
No intent. Then my lawyer stood, and everything shifted. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't rush. She didn't dramatize anything. She just presented facts.
Clean. Precise.
Unavoidable. Let's begin with the timeline.
Dates.
Messages. Photos. 2 parallel lives laid out side by side. Week by week. Year by year. No gaps. No confusion. No room left for interpretation. Then, the apartment. Lease agreement. Payment history. Source of funds. My account. My money. Funding his second life. Without my knowledge. Without consent. Then, the insurance. My name. Her daughter. Listed under my benefits. Covered by my employment. A child I had never met. Paid for by a life I thought was mine. And then, the messages. Not just to me. Not just to her. But the contradictions between them. Side by side on screen.
Same day.
Different stories. Different realities. One man. I watched his face as it all unfolded. That was the moment. The exact moment his control disappeared. Not when I confronted him.
Not when I kicked him out.
Not even when I filed. But here. When his story stopped being something he could shape and became something that could be proven. Then my lawyer said something I'll never forget. This is not a case of infidelity.
Pause.
This is a case of sustained, strategic deception with financial implications affecting 2 households. Silence. Even his lawyer didn't interrupt. Because there was nothing to interrupt. Truth, when presented cleanly enough, doesn't need defense. Then she called her. The other woman. She walked up calmly. Saturday.
Took a breath.
And told the truth. No exaggeration. No emotion-driven speech. Just facts. What he told her. What she believed. When she realized. And what it cost her. At one point, his lawyer tried to interrupt. Speculation. But the judge raised a hand. Overruled. Continue. And she did. She told them about the lies. About the promises. About the years. And then, she said something none of us had planned. She looked directly at him and said, "You didn't just lie to us.
Pause.
You made us lie to ourselves." That hit harder than anything else that day. Because that's what manipulation does. It doesn't just create false realities. It makes you defend them. Live inside them. Build your identity around them. He finally looked up. At her. At me. At everything he had built. And for the first time, he looked small.
The ruling didn't come that day.
But honestly, it didn't need to. Because by the time we walked out of that courtroom, he had already lost. 2 weeks later, the decision arrived. And this is where everything changed. Full financial disclosure. Approved. Asset review.
Approved.
Forensic audit findings. Confirmed. Hidden transfers. Undisclosed accounts. Misuse of marital funds.
Documented.
And then the part that mattered most. Restitution. He wasn't just losing the house. He wasn't just losing access. He wasn't just losing control.
He was ordered to repay.
Everything. The apartment. The hidden expenses. The transferred money. The insurance misuse. Every dollar tied to deception. And because of the scale, and the duration, and the intent that became impossible to deny, there were penalties. Legal. Financial.
Permanent.
The total. Just over $143,000. I didn't react when my lawyer told me. Not outwardly. Because the number wasn't the victory. The victory was something else. 3 days later, I saw him again. Not in court. Not in a meeting. By accident. I was at a grocery store. Normal day. Normal life. Moving forward. He was in the next aisle. Holding a basket. Looking ordinary. Smaller somehow. Like the world had resized him.
He saw me. Froze. Just like the first time.
But this time, there was no shock. No control. No script. He walked toward me slowly. Stopped a few feet away. I heard, he said quietly, about the ruling. I nodded. He looked like he wanted to say something bigger. Something meaningful. Something that would fix even a fraction of what he broke. But he didn't have it. Because people like him don't prepare for endings. Only for escapes. I never thought it would go this far, he admitted. I tilted my head slightly. That's because you never thought you'd get caught. He flinched. Just slightly. I lost everything, he said. And there it was. That sentence. The one they always say. I looked at him. Really looked. You didn't lose everything, I said calmly. You spent it. Silence. Because that's the truth no one likes to hear.
You don't lose a life like that.
You trade it.
Piece by piece.
Lie by lie. Choice by choice. Until there's nothing left worth keeping. He opened his mouth.
Closed it.
Nodded once. Then walked away. And I let him. No final speech. No dramatic closure. No revenge moment. Because the story didn't need one anymore. I walked to the register. Paid for my groceries. Stepped outside. And felt something I hadn't felt in a long time.
Light.
Not happiness. Not yet.
But space.
Room to breathe. Room to rebuild. Room to exist without someone rewriting my reality behind my back. And as I stood there, keys in my hand, sunlight hitting my face, I realized something simple. Something quiet. Something powerful. He had 2 lives. And lost both. I had one. And finally, it was mine again. If you made it this far, would you have exposed him like this? Or walked away quietly?